Mother Bear saw a human baby. Cemented in a wall, what happened next was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The old construction site sat abandoned for 3 months now, weeds pushing through cracks in the concrete foundation. Rusty equipment scattered around like forgotten toys, and the half-built walls stood like broken teeth against the gray October sky. Nobody came here anymore, not since the company went bankrupt and left everything behind. But today was different. Today, something moved in the shadows. Kara Sullivan walked through the tall grass, her hiking boots crunching on fallen leaves. She wasn't supposed to be here. The signs clearly said, "No trespassing," and "Danger, construction site," but she needed a shortcut to get back to town before dark. Her phone was dead, and the main road would take another hour to walk. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees that bordered the site. That's when she heard it. A sound that made her stop mid-step and cock her head to listen. Crying. Not just any crying. The desperate, breathless sobs of a baby. Kara's heart jumped. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. "Is someone there?" The crying continued, but it seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. She pulled out her flashlight and clicked it on, even though there was still some daylight left. The beam cut through the growing shadows as she moved deeper into the construction site. "Where are you?" she whispered, following the sound. It led her past piles of cement bags and stacks of rebar, toward the back of the site where the foundation walls were tallest. Then she saw her. A massive brown bear stood near one of the walls, her thick coat gleaming in the fading light. She was huge, probably 8 feet tall when she reared up on her hind legs, but she wasn't standing. She was crouched down, pawing gently at something in the wall. Kara's breath caught in her throat. The crying was coming from whatever the bear was touching. She took a step closer, trying to see better, when a twig snapped under her foot. The sound cracked through the air like a gunshot. The bear's head whipped around, fixing those dark, intelligent eyes directly on Kara. For a moment, neither of them moved. The crying continued, weaker now, almost a whimper. Kara's hands trembled as she raised her flashlight higher. The beam illuminated the wall where the bear had been working, and what she saw made her stomach drop. A tiny hand. Pale and small, sticking out from between 2 concrete blocks. There was a baby trapped in the wall. The bear turned back to the wall, completely ignoring Kara now. She began pawing at the concrete again, her massive claws scraping against the surface with surprising gentleness. The crying got a little louder, as if responding to the bear's touch. Kara stood frozen, her mind racing. How did a baby get cemented into a wall? Who would do such a thing? And why was this wild bear trying to help instead of walking away? She watched in amazement as the bear worked. Each movement was careful, deliberate. She would scrape away a bit of loose concrete, then pause to sniff and listen. When the baby made a sound, the bear would make a low, rumbling noise back, almost like she was trying to comfort the child. "My God," Kara whispered. The bear's ears twitched at the sound, but she didn't stop working. More concrete crumbled away, revealing more of the tiny arm. The baby's cries turned into soft gurgles, as if sensing help was coming. Kara realized she needed to do something. She couldn't just stand there watching. But what could she do? She had no tools, no way to call for help, and a giant bear stood between her and the trapped child. She took a careful step forward. The bear's head turned slightly, acknowledging her presence but not seeing her as a threat. Encouraged, Kara moved closer. "Easy, girl," she said softly. "I want to help too." The bear made that rumbling sound again, then went back to her work. More concrete fell away, and now Kara could see part of the baby's shoulder. The child was wearing a tiny yellow onesie, now gray with concrete dust. That's when Kara noticed something else. The bear wasn't alone. Two small cubs emerged from behind a pile of construction materials, their dark eyes curious but cautious. They stayed back, watching their mother work. The larger cub, maybe 6 months old, made a small whining sound. The mother bear paused and looked back at her babies, then at Kara, then at the wall. In that moment, Kara saw something in the bear's eyes that took her breath away. Desperation. The same desperate need to help that Kara felt in her own chest. This wasn't just a bear. This was a mother who recognized another baby in trouble. As the sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the construction site, Kara realized that whatever happened next would change everything. The baby's life hung in the balance, trapped in concrete and darkness, with only a wild bear and a lost hiker standing between survival and tragedy. The wind picked up again, carrying with it the scent of approaching rain. Time was running out. Kara moved another step closer, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The mother bear glanced at her again, but this time something passed between them. An understanding. They both wanted the same thing. "Let me help," Kara whispered, kneeling down beside the massive animal. The bear paused, studying Kara's face in the dim light. Then, incredibly, she shifted to one side, making room. Kara's hands shook as she reached toward the wall, her fingers finding the edges of loose concrete around the baby's trapped arm. The concrete was still soft in places, not fully cured. Someone had done this recently, very recently. "Who did this to you, baby?" Kara murmured, working alongside the bear to chip away more material. Her fingernails broke against the rough surface, but she didn't care. The baby's whimpering grew softer, almost relieved. The bear made that rumbling sound again, and Kara realized it was the same tone her own mother had used when comforting her as a child. Deep, soothing, protective. This wild animal was crooning to a human baby like it was her own cub. As they worked together, Kara became aware of other sounds. The cubs were getting restless, making small chirping noises. The mother bear would pause every few minutes to look back at them, torn between helping the trapped baby and protecting her own young. "It's okay," Kara told her. "I've got this for a minute. Check on your babies." The bear seemed to understand. She padded over to her cubs, nuzzling them gently, then returned to the wall. But as she came back, she froze mid-step, her nose twitching. She smelled something. Kara noticed it too. The bear's entire body had gone rigid, her hackles rising. A low growl started deep in her throat, and she positioned herself between the wall and whatever was coming. Footsteps. Heavy boots crunching through the construction debris. "Well, well, well," a man's voice cut through the evening air. "What do we have here?" Kara's blood turned to ice. She recognized that voice. It belonged to Marcus Reed, a local contractor who'd been in the news recently. Something about missing permits and unsafe work practices. He'd been trying to buy her grandmother's property for months, making increasingly aggressive offers. Marcus stepped into view, a cigarette hanging from his lips and a crowbar in his right hand. He was a big man, probably 6'4", with arms like tree trunks and a permanent sneer on his weathered face. "Kara Sullivan," he said, taking a long drag from his cigarette. "Should have known you'd stick your nose where it doesn't belong." The mother bear positioned herself protectively in front of Kara and the wall, her cubs huddling behind a pile of concrete blocks. Her growl grew louder, more menacing. "Nice bear you got there," Marcus said, seemingly unconcerned. "Too bad she won't be around much longer." That's when Kara saw the gun holstered at his hip. "Marcus, what is this?" Kara demanded, though her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Why is there a baby in this wall?" Marcus took another drag, then flicked the cigarette away. It landed dangerously close to one of the cubs, who scrambled back toward its mother. "That baby," Marcus said slowly, "was supposed to disappear. Permanently. Some problems require permanent solutions, if you know what I mean." Kara's mind reeled. "You're talking about murder, about killing a child." "I'm talking about cleaning up loose ends," Marcus replied, his hand moving toward his gun. "Some people don't know when to keep their mouths shut. Some people think they can threaten me, expose my business practices. Well, that baby's mama learned different." The pieces started falling into place in Kara's mind. She'd heard rumors about Marcus's construction company. Missing safety inspections, workers getting hurt, corners being cut. Someone must have tried to expose him. "The baby's mother found out what you were doing," Kara said. "She was going to report you." Marcus smiled, but it was cold and ugly. Sarah Chen was always too smart for her own good, kept asking questions about the permits, about the safety violations. Said she had evidence that could shut me down. Sarah Chen. Kara knew that name. She was a young engineer who'd been working on several construction projects around town. She'd gone missing 2 weeks ago, and everyone assumed she'd left town for a new job. "Where is she?" Kara asked, though she already feared the answer. Marcus gestured toward another section of the construction site, where several walls stood completed. "Let's just say she's staying put these days." The horror of it hit Kara like a physical blow. Sarah Chen was dead, probably cemented into one of those walls just like her baby had been meant to be. But something had gone wrong. Maybe Marcus had been interrupted, or maybe he'd run out of concrete mix. "You're insane," Kara breathed. "I'm practical," Marcus corrected. "And now, I've got 2 more problems to solve." He drew his gun, a heavy black pistol that looked enormous in the fading light. The mother bear's growl turned into a full roar, and she reared up on her hind legs, towering over both humans. "Easy there, Mama Bear," Marcus said, raising the gun. "This'll all be over soon." But the bear wasn't backing down. If anything, she seemed to grow larger, more imposing. Her cubs had gone completely silent, sensing the danger. Kara's mind raced. She needed to get the baby out of the wall, but she couldn't do it with Marcus standing there with a gun. The bear was brave, but bullets would bring her down no matter how fierce she was. That's when she heard it. A new sound that made everyone freeze. Sirens. Still distant, but getting closer. Marcus's face darkened. "You called the cops?" "My phone's dead," Kara said truthfully. "I couldn't call anyone." But someone had. The sirens were definitely getting closer, multiple vehicles by the sound of it. Marcus cursed and raised his gun toward Kara. "Doesn't matter. I'll clean this up and be gone before they get here." The mother bear roared again and charged. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Marcus swung the gun toward the bear, but she was faster than he expected. 800 pounds of protective fury slammed into him, sending the gun flying into the darkness. Kara dove toward the wall, her hands working frantically to free more of the baby. The concrete was giving way, chunks falling to the ground as she clawed at it. The child's arm came free, then a shoulder. Behind her, she could hear Marcus shouting, the bear roaring, and her cubs crying out in distress. The sirens were much closer now, maybe a mile away. "Come on, baby," Kara whispered, working faster. "Come on." More concrete crumbled away, revealing the baby's head. It was a little girl, maybe 10 months old, with dark hair matted with concrete dust. Her eyes were open, staring up at Kara with a trust that broke her heart. "I've got you," Kara promised. "I've got you." The baby's other arm came free, then her torso. She was thin, too thin, like she hadn't been eating properly. How long had she been trapped in there? A gunshot rang out across the construction site. Kara spun around to see Marcus back on his feet, having retrieved his weapon. The mother bear was on the ground, a dark stain spreading across her fur. She was trying to get up, but one of her front legs wouldn't support her weight. The cubs were crying, high-pitched sounds of distress as they tried to reach their mother. "Now," Marcus said, breathing hard, "where were we?" He raised the gun again, but this time he aimed it at the wounded bear. "No!" Kara screamed. That's when the baby in her arms did something that stopped everyone cold. She reached out her tiny hand toward the fallen bear and made a sound. Not crying, not whimpering. A soft cooing sound like she was trying to comfort the animal that had been trying to save her. In that moment, something shifted in the air. The wounded bear lifted her massive head and looked directly at the baby. Their eyes met, and the bear made that same rumbling, comforting sound she'd been making all along. Even Marcus hesitated, his gun wavering. The sirens were almost on top of them now, red and blue lights beginning to flash through the trees. But Kara knew they might not arrive in time. She had to do something. The baby was free, but the bear who'd saved her life was bleeding out on the cold concrete, and Marcus was still holding that gun. That's when Kara noticed something that changed everything. The baby wasn't just reaching toward the bear. She was holding something small and rectangular, clutched in her tiny fist. A phone. Sarah Chen's phone, somehow hidden on her daughter when Marcus had tried to cement her into the wall, and the screen was lit up, showing an active call. Someone had been listening to everything. Marcus saw it too. His face went white as he realized what this meant. "Give me that phone," he snarled, taking a step toward Kara. But the wounded mother bear wasn't finished. Despite the bullet in her shoulder, she dragged herself between Marcus and Kara, her good front paw planted firmly on the ground. Blood matted her fur, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "Mom, I can hear you." A voice crackled from the phone's speaker. It was a man's voice, urgent and scared. "Mom, are you there? I've been listening for 20 minutes. The police are almost there." Kara's hands trembled as she looked at the phone screen. The call had been running for 23 minutes. The contact name read, "Tommy, emergency only." Sarah Chen had somehow managed to call her son before Marcus killed her. The phone had been hidden with the baby all this time, and when Kara had freed the child's arms, she'd accidentally activated the call. "Sarah's son," Kara whispered, the pieces clicking together. He heard everything. Marcus's face twisted with rage. That little witch. Even dead, she's still causing me problems. The sirens were deafening now, just outside the construction site. Red and blue lights painted the concrete walls in shifting colors. Car doors slammed, and Kara could hear shouting voices. "Police! Nobody move!" But Marcus wasn't giving up. He raised his gun toward the baby in Kara's arms. "If I'm going down, I'm finishing what I started." The mother bear tried to lunge at him again, but her injured leg collapsed. She hit the ground hard, letting out a cry of pain that made her cubs wail in response. That's when something extraordinary happened. The baby in Kara's arms looked directly at Marcus, her dark eyes wide and unafraid. She made that same soft cooing sound she'd made to comfort the bear. But this time, it was different. This time, it sounded almost like words. "Ma, ma." It was her first word, and she was looking right at the wounded bear as she said it. The mother bear's ears perked up. Despite her pain, despite the blood loss, she managed to lift her massive head and make that rumbling, comforting sound back to the baby. Even Marcus hesitated, his gun wavering. The scene was so surreal, so impossible, that for a moment everyone just stopped and stared. "This is the police. Drop your weapon." Officers poured into the construction site, flashlights cutting through the darkness, weapons drawn. But they stopped short when they saw the scene before them. A woman holding a baby, standing next to a wounded mother bear and her cubs, facing down an armed man who looked increasingly desperate. "Drop the gun, Marcus," shouted a voice Kara recognized. Detective James Morrison, someone she'd known since high school. "We heard everything. Sarah's son has been recording this whole conversation." Marcus's eyes darted between the police, Kara, the baby, and the bear. He was trapped, and he knew it. "You don't understand," he said, his voice cracking. "This was supposed to be clean, simple. Sarah Chen was going to destroy everything I've built." "So, you killed her," Detective Morrison said, moving closer but keeping his weapon trained on Marcus. "And you tried to kill her baby." "She had evidence," Marcus continued, as if he hadn't heard. "Photos of the safety violations, recordings of me cutting corners. She was going to send me to prison." The baby in Kara's arms made another sound, softer this time. She was getting tired, probably dehydrated and hungry after being trapped for who knows how long. But she kept looking at the wounded bear, reaching out her tiny hand. "How long was the baby in the wall?" Detective Morrison asked. Kara checked the phone screen. The call log showed multiple attempts over the past week. "At least a week," she said. "Maybe longer." "A week?" Morrison's voice was horrified. How did she survive? That's when Kara realized something that made her heart skip. She looked at the mother bear, then at the construction site around them. There were small holes in the wall where the baby had been trapped. Holes that looked like they'd been carefully chewed or clawed out. "The bear," she whispered. "She's been feeding the baby?" Everyone turned to look at the wounded animal. The mother bear was barely conscious now, her breathing shallow and labored. But when the baby made another sound, she still tried to respond. "That's impossible," Marcus said. "Bears don't." "They do if they're mothers," interrupted a new voice. Dr. Rebecca Hayes, the local veterinarian, pushed through the crowd of officers. She must have been called when they realized there were wounded animals at the scene. "Bears are incredibly intelligent," Dr. Hayes continued, kneeling beside the wounded animal. "A mother bear would absolutely try to help a trapped baby, especially if she thought it was abandoned or in distress." She examined the bear's wound with gentle hands. The bullet went through the shoulder muscle, missed the bone. "She'll live if we can get her to surgery soon." The baby in Kara's arms started crying, a weak, exhausted sound. She was at the end of her strength. "We need to get this child to a hospital," said another voice. Paramedics had arrived and were setting up their equipment. But as they approached, the baby reached out toward the bear again, making distressed sounds. She didn't want to be separated from the animal that had saved her life. "It's okay, sweetie," Kara soothed. "The bear will be okay too." Dr. Hayes looked up from examining the bear. "Actually, there's something else you should know. This bear, she recently lost a cub." The words hung in the air like a physical weight. "Lost a cub?" Detective Morrison asked. "I treated her about 3 weeks ago," Dr. Hayes explained. "Someone reported a bear with an injured cub near the highway. By the time I got there, the cub was dead, hit by a car. The mother was devastated. Bears grieve just like humans do." Kara felt tears starting to flow down her cheeks. The mother bear hadn't just been helping a human baby out of instinct. She'd been trying to fill the hole left by her own dead child. She's been coming back here every day, Dr. Hayes continued. I wondered why. Now I know. She was taking care of Sarah's baby. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. The mother bear had found the trapped baby and had been keeping her alive, probably bringing her food and water, keeping her warm at night. The small holes in the wall weren't just random damage, they were carefully made openings to allow air circulation and access. For over a week, Kara said in amazement. She's been a mother to this baby for over a week. Marcus was still standing there with his gun, but his arm had dropped to his side. Even he seemed stunned by what they'd discovered. This is crazy, he muttered. This is all completely crazy. Drop the weapon, Marcus, Detective Morrison said again. It's over. But Marcus wasn't listening. His eyes had a wild, desperate look. You don't understand. If this gets out, if people know what I did, I'll lose everything. My company, my reputation, my family. You should have thought of that before you murdered Sarah Chen, Morrison replied. The phone in the baby's hand crackled to life again. Mom? Mom, are you still there? The news trucks are coming. This is going to be everywhere. Sarah's son, still listening, still trying to reach his mother who would never answer again. Kara gently took the phone and raised it to her ear. Hello? Is this Tommy? Yes, came the tearful reply. Is my mom, is she really? I'm so sorry, Kara whispered. But your baby sister is alive. The bear saved her. She could hear him crying on the other end. My sister? I have a sister? She's beautiful, Kara said, looking down at the tired child in her arms. She looks just like her mom. The mother bear made a weak sound, and Dr. Hayes looked concerned. We need to move her now, or we're going to lose her. A team of wildlife officers had arrived with a special transport vehicle. They carefully lifted the wounded bear onto a stretcher, her cubs following closely behind, whimpering with distress. As they moved the mother bear past Kara and the baby, something magical happened. The baby reached out and managed to touch the bear's fur with her tiny fingers. The bear's eyes opened, and she made that rumbling, comforting sound one more time. Ma, Ma, the baby said again, this time clearly looking at the bear. And in that moment everyone watching understood. This wasn't just a story about a bear saving a human child. It was a story about two mothers, one who died protecting her baby, and one who lost her own child but found purpose in saving another. But Marcus Reed wasn't finished. As everyone's attention was focused on the emotional scene between the baby and bear, he raised his gun one last time. If I can't have my life back, he said, his voice cold and final, then nobody gets a happy ending. He aimed the gun directly at the baby in Kara's arms. The shot rang out across the construction site, echoing off the concrete walls. But it wasn't Marcus who had fired. Detective Morrison's bullet caught Marcus in the chest, spinning him around before he collapsed beside a pile of concrete blocks. His gun skittered away into the darkness, no longer a threat. Medic! Morrison shouted. We need a medic over here. But even as paramedics rushed to help Marcus, everyone knew it was too late. His eyes were already growing glassy, his breathing shallow and rapid. Sarah, he whispered, and then he was gone. The construction site fell silent, except for the sound of sirens and the soft whimpering of the bear cubs. Kara held the baby closer, her whole body shaking with the realization of how close they'd all come to disaster. The child had stopped crying and was looking around with wide, curious eyes, as if she understood that the danger was finally over. "It's okay now," Kara whispered to her. "You're safe. The bear is safe. Everyone's safe." But as she said it, she realized that nothing would ever be the same again. This baby had survived something that should have killed her, saved by a wild animal that had every reason to ignore her, but chose to love her instead. Dr. Hayes called out from the transport vehicle. "The bear's stable. We're taking her to the wildlife sanctuary for surgery. The cubs will stay with her." "What happens to the baby?" Detective Morrison asked. Kara looked down at the child in her arms. She had no family left except for a half-brother she'd never met. No one to take care of her. No one who understood what she'd been through. "I'll take her," Kara said without hesitation, "until we can figure out what's best for her." The baby looked up at her and smiled for the first time, a tiny, perfect smile that lit up her whole face. As the paramedics loaded the baby into an ambulance for the trip to the hospital, Kara noticed something else. The phone was still active, still connected to Tommy. "Tommy," she said into the speaker. "Are you still there?" "Yes," came the reply. "I'm driving down from Seattle right now. I'll be there in 6 hours." "Your sister is going to be okay," Kara promised, "and you need to know. Your mother was a hero. She saved this baby's life even after she was gone." "How?" Tommy asked. Kara looked around the construction site, at the walls where Sarah Chen's body was probably hidden, at the spot where her baby had been trapped, at the bloodstains where the mother bear had fallen protecting them all. She made sure the truth would come out, Kara said. No matter what. As the ambulance pulled away, carrying the baby toward safety and a new life, Kara realized that this was just the beginning. There would be investigations, trials, media attention. The story of the mother bear who saved a human baby would spread around the world. But tonight, all that mattered was that an innocent child was alive. A grieving bear had found purpose, and justice had finally been served. The construction site was quiet now. Crime scene tape fluttering in the night breeze. Soon, investigators would tear apart every wall, looking for Sarah Chen's remains. They would find evidence of Marcus's crimes, his cover-ups, his desperate attempts to hide the truth. But they would also find something else. Something that would change how people thought about animals, about motherhood, about the connections that bind all living things together. They would find a story of love that transcended species, of sacrifice that knew no boundaries, of hope that could survive even in the darkest places. As Kara walked away from the construction site, following the ambulance toward the hospital, she could hear the distant sound of the bear cubs calling for their mother. Dr. Hayes had promised they would all be reunited soon, that the mother bear would recover and they could return to the wild. But Kara knew that none of them would ever be the same. The bear had found a new purpose in protecting the vulnerable. The baby had learned that love could come from the most unexpected places. And Kara herself had discovered that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply show up when someone needs help. Behind them, the construction site stood empty and dark, holding its secrets and its stories. But the most important story was just beginning to unfold. In a hospital room where a baby girl was about to meet her big brother. In a wildlife sanctuary where a mother bear was learning to trust humans again, and in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed something truly miraculous. The night was far from over, and there were still many questions to be answered, many details to be uncovered. But for now, the most important thing had been accomplished. Love had triumphed over evil, and an innocent life had been saved. At Mercy General Hospital, Kara sat in the pediatric wing holding the baby girl, who had finally been cleaned up and examined by doctors. The child was severely dehydrated and malnourished, but otherwise healthy. Remarkably healthy, considering what she'd endured. "How is this possible?" Dr. Patricia Wong asked, reviewing the test results. "A baby this age shouldn't have survived more than 3 days without proper nutrition and hydration." Kara looked down at the sleeping child in her arms. The bear. She must have been bringing her food and water. But what kind of food would a bear give to a human baby? Dr. Wong wondered aloud. That question was answered an hour later when Detective Morrison arrived with evidence bags from the construction site. "Crime scene techs found these near where the baby was trapped," he said, setting the bags on the table. Inside were partially chewed berries, nuts, and what looked like regurgitated fish. Bear food that had been pre-processed to make it digestible for a human infant. The mother bear was literally chewing the food to make it safe for the baby, Dr. Wong said in amazement, like birds do for their chicks. Kara felt tears welling up again. The depth of the bear's maternal instinct was beyond anything she could have imagined. "There's something else," Detective Morrison continued. "We found Sarah Chen's body." The words hit Kara like a physical blow, even though she'd been expecting them. She was in the foundation of the main building, just like Marcus said. But there's something strange about it. She wasn't just murdered and buried. Someone took time to prepare her. "What do you mean?" Kara asked. Morrison looked uncomfortable. She was dressed in clean clothes, her hair was brushed, her hands were folded. It's like someone cared about how she would be found. A chill ran down Kara's spine. Marcus wouldn't have done that. "No," Morrison agreed. "Marcus would have just dumped her body and covered it with concrete. This was someone else, someone who knew Sarah, maybe even cared about her." The baby stirred in Kara's arms, making soft sounds in her sleep. She was dreaming, and from the way she moved her tiny hands, it looked like she was reaching for something. "Have you been able to contact the father?" Dr. Wong asked. Morrison shook his head. "That's another mystery. According to the birth certificate, the father is listed as unknown, but Tommy Chen says his mother was dating someone about a year ago, a man named David Reeves." Kara recognized the name. David Reeves? The city planning commissioner? "The same one," Morrison confirmed. "We tried to reach him, but his office says he's been out of town on business for the past 2 weeks. Left right around the time Sarah disappeared. Another piece of the puzzle, but it didn't fit with the others. Why would a city planning commissioner be involved with Marcus Reed's construction crimes? And if David was the baby's father, where had he been when Sarah was trying to expose Marcus? "I need to make a call," Morrison said, excusing himself. Dr. Wong continued her examination of the baby, marveling at how well she'd survived her ordeal. "She's going to need some time to recover, but I think she'll be fine. The question is, what happens to her now?" Before Kara could answer, there was a commotion in the hallway. Raised voices, hurried footsteps, and the sound of someone arguing with hospital security. "I have every right to see her. She's my sister." The door burst open, and a young man rushed in. He was tall and thin, with the same dark hair and eyes as the baby. Tommy Chen had arrived. "Where is she?" he demanded, looking around the room frantically. "Where's my sister?" Kara stood up, still holding the baby. "She's right here. She's okay." Tommy stopped short when he saw the child. His face crumpled and he started crying. "She's so small, and she looks just like Mom." He approached slowly, as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Can I hold her?" Kara carefully transferred the baby to Tommy's arms. The moment she felt his touch, the child opened her eyes and looked up at him. She studied his face for a long moment, then reached up with one tiny hand and touched his cheek. "Hi, little sister," Tommy whispered. I'm sorry I wasn't here to protect you." The baby made a soft cooing sound, the same sound she'd made to comfort the bear. Tommy started crying harder. "I should have known Mom was in trouble," he said. "She called me 2 weeks ago, said she was worried about something at work. But I was busy with finals and I told her I'd call her back later. I never did." "This isn't your fault," Kara said gently. "Your mother was trying to do the right thing, and she saved your sister's life even after she was gone." Tommy looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. "The man on the phone said you're the one who found her. You and a bear?" Kara nodded. "The bear saved her life. Your mother somehow managed to hide that phone with the baby before Marcus sealed her in the wall. When I freed her arms, she accidentally activated an emergency call to you. Mom always taught me to keep my emergency contact active," Tommy said. "She said you never know when someone might need help." The baby had fallen asleep again in Tommy's arms, her tiny fist wrapped around his finger. She looked peaceful for the first time since Kara had found her. "What's her name?" Tommy asked. Kara realized she didn't know. "We haven't found any records yet. Did your mother mention a name?" Tommy thought for a moment. "In her last message, she said something about hope. She said no matter what happened, there was always hope." He looked down at his sleeping sister. "Hope? That should be her name." "Hope Chen," Dr. Wong said with a smile. "I like it." Detective Morrison returned, his face grim. "We have a problem. David Reeves isn't just out of town on business, he's disappeared. His credit cards haven't been used in 2 weeks, his car was found abandoned at the airport, and his apartment looks like he left in a hurry." The room fell silent. This put a whole new spin on the situation. "You think he was involved with Marcus?" Kara asked. "I think he knew something was going to happen to Sarah," Morrison replied. "The question is whether he was trying to protect her or silence her." Tommy looked up sharply. "David wouldn't hurt Mom. He loved her." "How well did you know him?" Morrison asked. "Pretty well. He'd been dating Mom for about 8 months. He seemed really good to her, and he was excited about the baby. He even talked about proposing." "Then why did he run?" Morrison pressed. Tommy shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe he was scared. Maybe Marcus threatened him too." Before anyone could respond, Dr. Wong's pager buzzed. She checked it and frowned. "I need to step out for a moment. Emergency in the ER." As she left, Morrison's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, then his face went white. "We'll be right there," he said, hanging up. "What is it?" Kara asked. "They found another body at the construction site. Male, mid-30s, buried in the same section as Sarah Chen." Tommy's face drained of color. "David?" "We won't know until we can identify the body," Morrison said. "But the timing fits." The baby woke up and started crying, as if she could sense the tension in the room. Tommy rocked her gently, but she wouldn't calm down. "She's probably hungry," Kara said. "It's been hours since she last ate." Dr. Wong returned with a bottle of formula, but when they tried to feed Hope, she pushed it away and cried harder. "That's strange," Dr. Wong said. "She should be starving." Kara had an idea. What if she's not used to regular baby food? What if the bear was feeding her something else? They tried mashing up some of the berries that had been found at the construction site, mixing them with a little water. Hope immediately stopped crying and eagerly ate the mixture. "Incredible," Dr. Wong muttered. "She's been living off bear food for so long that her digestive system has adapted to it." "Will she be okay?" Tommy asked, worried. "We'll gradually transition her back to normal baby food," Dr. Wong assured him. "But this is another piece of evidence of just how remarkable that bear's care was." Morrison's phone rang again. This time, when he answered, his expression grew even more serious. "I understand," he said. "We'll stay put until you get here." He hung up and looked at the others. "The FBI is taking over the case. Apparently, Marcus Reed's construction company was being investigated for money laundering and connections to organized crime. Sarah's murder wasn't just about covering up safety violations. It was about hiding something much bigger." "Money laundering?" Kara asked. "Millions of dollars flowing through fake construction contracts." The safety violations Sarah discovered were just the tip of the iceberg. She stumbled onto evidence of a major criminal operation. Tommy held Hope closer. "So Mom was killed because she was going to expose organized crime." "It looks that way," Morrison said. "And if David Reeves was involved with the city planning department, he might have been part of it. Or he might have been trying to protect Sarah and got killed for it." The hospital room suddenly felt very small and very unsafe. If they were dealing with organized crime, then Hope might still be in danger. "What do we do now?" Kara asked. "We wait for the FBI," Morrison said, "and we keep this baby safe." But as he said it, the lights in the hospital corridor flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. In the distance, they could hear shouting and the sound of running feet. "That's not a power outage," Morrison said grimly, drawing his weapon. "Someone cut the power." Through the window, Kara could see black SUVs pulling into the hospital parking lot. Men in dark clothing were getting out, moving with military precision toward the building. "They're here for the baby," Morrison said. "We need to move. Now." Tommy clutched Hope to his chest. "Where do we go?" "There's a service elevator at the end of the hall," Morrison said. "If we can get to the parking garage, I can call for backup." They moved quickly out of the room and down the darkened corridor. Hope had gone completely silent, as if she sensed the danger around her. But as they reached the elevator, they heard footsteps behind them. Heavy boots, moving fast. "There!" a voice shouted. "They're at the elevator." Morrison spun around, his gun raised. "Get in the elevator. Now!" Kara punched the button frantically, but the elevator was slow to respond. The footsteps were getting closer. Come on," Tommy whispered, holding Hope tightly. The elevator doors finally opened, and they rushed inside. Morrison backed in after them, his gun still trained on the corridor. Just as the doors started to close, a man in black tactical gear appeared at the end of the hall. He raised his weapon, aiming directly at them. Morrison fired first. The man dove for cover, and his shot went wild, sparking off the elevator doors as they finally closed. "Basement level," Morrison said, pressing the button. "We'll take the tunnel to the parking garage." The elevator descended slowly, each floor feeling like an eternity. Hope started to whimper softly, and Tommy shushed her gently. "It's okay, little sister," he whispered. "We're going to keep you safe." But when the elevator doors opened at the basement level, they found more men waiting for them. "Detective Morrison," one of them said, his voice calm and professional. "We're going to need you to hand over the child." Morrison kept his gun raised. "FBI?" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Something like that." "Show me your badge," Morrison demanded. "I don't think you're in a position to make demands," the man replied. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in a basement. The smart play here is to cooperate." Kara's mind raced. These weren't FBI agents. These were the same people who had killed Sarah Chen and David Reeves. They were here to clean up the last loose end. Hope. The baby girl who had somehow survived being cemented into a wall, who had been kept alive by a grieving mother bear, who carried in her very existence the proof of her mother's murder. They wanted to finish what Marcus Reed had started. "You're not taking her," Tommy said firmly, even though his voice shook with fear. The man's smile widened. "Actually, we are. The question is whether the rest of you survive the experience." That's when they heard it. A sound that made everyone in the basement freeze. A roar. Deep, primal, and very close. Through the basement windows they could see shapes moving in the darkness outside. Large shapes with glowing eyes. "What the hell?" one of the armed men muttered. The roar came again, closer this time, and this time it was answered by other roars. Multiple animals moving toward the hospital. Hope lifted her head and made that soft cooing sound again, but this time it was different. This time it sounded almost like a call, and from outside the roars responded. The mother bear had come for her adopted daughter, and she hadn't come alone. The basement shook as something massive hit the hospital's outer wall. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the fluorescent lights flickered ominously. Through the small basement windows they could see shadows moving. Large, powerful shapes circling the building. "What is that?" one of the armed men whispered, his weapon wavering as he stared at the windows. Detective Morrison kept his gun trained on the leader, but his eyes darted toward the sounds outside. Sounds like your cleanup operation just got complicated. Hope made that cooing sound again, louder this time, almost like she was calling out. And from somewhere above them, they heard an answering roar that shook the entire building. The leader of the armed men spoke into his radio. "Base, we have a situation. There are animals surrounding the hospital, large animals." The radio crackled back. "Handle it. We need that baby and we need it tonight." "Copy that," the leader replied, then turned to his men. "Jenkins, Rodriguez, go topside and deal with whatever's out there. The rest of you secure the targets." But as two of the men moved toward the stairwell, the lights went out completely. Not just the basement lights, the entire hospital plunged into darkness. In the blackness, Hope started crying. Not the weak whimpers she'd made before, but strong, healthy cries that echoed through the basement. And from outside, those cries were answered by a chorus of roars. "Night vision," the leader barked. Everyone switched to night vision. Green lights appeared as the men activated their equipment. But in the eerie glow, they could see something that made several of them step backward. Eyes. Dozens of glowing eyes pressed against the basement windows, watching them. "Sir," one of the men said, his voice tight with fear, "those aren't just bears out there." He was right. Through the windows they could make out different shapes. Bears, yes, but also wolves, mountain lions, even what looked like a small family of deer. All of them gathered around the hospital. All of them focused on the basement where Hope's cries were coming from. "This is impossible," the leader muttered. "Animals don't work together like this." But Kara was beginning to understand. She looked down at Hope, who had stopped crying and was now making soft, rhythmic sounds, almost like she was communicating. "She's calling them," Kara whispered in amazement. "What?" Tommy asked, holding his sister closer. "The baby. She's somehow calling the animals. They're responding to her." Dr. Rebecca Hayes had mentioned that the mother bear had been grieving the loss of her own cub. But what if it went deeper than that? What if the week Hope had spent with the bear had created some kind of bond that went beyond normal animal behavior? The basement ceiling creaked ominously, and they could hear scratching sounds from above. Something was trying to get into the building. "Sir, we've lost contact with Jenkins and Rodriguez," one of the men reported. "Their radios went dead as soon as they reached the first floor." The leader's face was grim in the green glow of the night vision. How many men do we have left? 4, including you, sir. Against a baby and a wounded cop, the leader said. Should be simple enough. But it wasn't simple, because the animals outside weren't just watching anymore, they were acting. The first window exploded inward as a massive bear paw smashed through the glass. Then another window shattered and another. The basement was suddenly filled with the sounds of breaking glass and the roar of angry animals. "Open fire!" the leader shouted. Gunshots rang out in the confined space, deafeningly loud. But the animals kept coming. Through the broken windows, through what must have been other entrances to the building. Morrison grabbed Kara and Tommy, pulling them toward a maintenance door at the far end of the basement. "Move, now!" They ran through the darkness. Hope clutched tightly in Tommy's arms. Behind them, they could hear chaos. Men shouting, animals roaring, more gunshots. The maintenance door led to a narrow tunnel that connected the hospital to the adjacent medical office building. As they ran through the cramped space, Kara could hear the sounds of battle growing fainter behind them. "How did they find us?" Tommy gasped as they reached the other end of the tunnel. "The animals?" Morrison asked. "I have no idea." But Kara was starting to piece it together. "The mother bear. When Dr. Hayes operated on her, did they sedate her?" Morrison nodded. "Had to for the surgery." "And where did they take her?" "To the wildlife sanctuary about 10 miles from here." Morrison stopped running as understanding dawned on him. "You think she woke up and came looking for the baby?" "I think that bear formed a bond with Hope that's stronger than anything we understand," Kara said. "And I think somehow that bond extends to other animals too." They emerged into the medical office building, which was dark and empty at this hour. Through the windows they could see the chaos at the hospital. Emergency vehicles were arriving, their lights flashing red and blue against the night sky. But there was something else. In the parking lot, among the police cars and ambulances, they could see animals. Lots of animals. They weren't attacking the emergency responders. They seemed to be ignoring them completely. All their attention was focused on the hospital building where Hope had been. "It's like they're protecting her," Tommy said in wonder. "All of them." Hope had fallen asleep in her brother's arms, exhausted by the night's events. But even in sleep, she made soft sounds that seemed to carry through the air. And wherever those sounds went, the animals responded. Morrison's radio crackled to life. "Detective Morrison, this is Captain Rodriguez. What's your status?" "We're secure," Morrison replied. "The baby is safe. But we've got a situation at the hospital. Armed men claiming to be federal agents, but I don't think they are." "Copy that. We've got FBI on the way, real FBI this time. ETA 15 minutes. But we've got another problem. The hospital is surrounded by wildlife. We can't get close enough to secure the building." Morrison looked at Hope, sleeping peacefully despite everything that had happened. "The animals won't hurt anyone. They're just protecting the baby." "Protecting her from what?" "From the people who killed her mother." There was a long pause on the radio. "Detective, I need you to explain that when I see you. For now, stay where you are. Don't approach the hospital until we give the all clear." As they waited, more animals appeared. A family of raccoons scurried past the windows. A large owl perched on a nearby tree, its head turning to track their movements. Even some domestic animals, dogs and cats from the neighborhood zoo, had joined the gathering. "This is incredible," Kara whispered. "It's like every animal in the county is coming to protect her." "But why?" Tommy asked. "She's just a baby." Kara thought about everything that had happened. About Sarah Chen, who had died trying to protect her daughter. About the mother bear, who had lost her own cub but found purpose in caring for another. About the week Hope had spent learning to survive in ways no human child should have to. "Maybe she's not just a baby anymore," Kara said slowly. "Maybe what she went through changed her somehow. Maybe living with the bear, eating bear food, being cared for by a wild animal. Maybe it created some kind of connection we don't understand." Dr. Wong's voice came over Morrison's radio. "Detective, this is Doctor Wong at the hospital. I'm trapped in the pediatric wing, but I'm okay. The animals aren't hurting anyone. They seem to be hunting the armed men specifically." "Are you safe?" Morrison asked. "For now. But I've been watching this, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen. The animals are coordinated. They're working together like they have a common purpose." Through the windows, they could see that she was right. The bears weren't just randomly attacking. They were systematically searching the hospital, room by room. The wolves were guarding the exits. The mountain lions were patrolling the perimeter. It was like watching a military operation conducted by wild animals. "There," Tommy pointed out the window. "Look." One of the armed men had made it out of the hospital and was running across the parking lot toward a black SUV. But he didn't make it far. A pack of wolves emerged from the shadows surrounding him. They didn't attack, but they made it clear he wasn't going anywhere. The man dropped his weapon and raised his hands in surrender. "The animals are capturing them," Cora said in amazement. "Not killing them, capturing them." More of the armed men were herded out of the hospital by various animals. Each one was surrounded and contained, their weapons abandoned. Within minutes, all 4 of the surviving attackers were sitting in the parking lot, guarded by a menagerie of wildlife. That's when the real FBI arrived. Black SUVs with government plates pulled into the parking lot, followed by local police cars. Federal agents in tactical gear spread out around the scene, but they stopped short when they saw the animals. "This is FBI agent Sarah Martinez," came a voice over Morrison's radio. "Detective Morrison, we need to talk." "Copy that," Morrison replied. "But you're going to have to wait. The animals won't let anyone near the building until they're sure the baby is safe." "What baby?" Morrison looked at Hope, still sleeping peacefully in Tommy's arms. "The baby who survived being cemented into a wall by a corrupt contractor involved in organized crime. The baby who was kept alive for a week by a mother bear. The baby who seems to have developed some kind of supernatural connection to every animal in the county." There was a long silence on the radio. "Detective," Agent Martinez finally said, "I think you'd better start from the beginning." But before Morrison could respond, something extraordinary happened. The mother bear appeared. She limped out of the hospital, her shoulder bandaged from Dr. Hayes' surgery. She should have been weak, barely able to walk. Instead, she moved with purpose and determination. She walked directly to the medical office building where they were hiding. Hope woke up at that moment, as if she sensed the bear's presence. She made that soft cooing sound, and the bear answered with a low rumble. "She wants to see the baby," Kara said. "That's impossible," Tommy protested. "She's a wild animal." But even as he said it, he was moving toward the window. Because somehow, they all understood that this wasn't about wild animals and human babies anymore. This was about family, about bonds that transcended species, about love that could survive anything. The bear reached the building and reared up on her hind legs, pressing her massive paws against the window. Hope reached out with her tiny hands, pressing them against the glass from the other side. For a moment, they stayed like that. The wounded mother bear and the baby she had saved, separated by nothing but a thin sheet of glass. Then Hope spoke. "Mama," she said clearly, looking directly at the bear, and every animal in the parking lot, Bears, wolves, mountain lions, deer, raccoons, owls, dogs, and cats all stopped what they were doing and looked toward the building. In that moment, something shifted in the air. The animals began to disperse, melting back into the shadows as quietly as they had appeared. Their job was done. Their message had been delivered. The baby was safe. The family was reunited. And anyone who tried to hurt Hope Chen would have to answer to every creature in the forest. Agent Martinez's voice came over the radio again, but this time it was filled with wonder rather than confusion. "Detective Morrison," she said slowly, "I think we're going to need a bigger report." But the story was far from over. Because as the animals disappeared into the night, one of the captured men was talking, and what he was telling the FBI agents would unravel a conspiracy that went far deeper than anyone had imagined. David Reeves wasn't just missing. He was in hiding, and he had been waiting for this moment for 2 weeks. A black sedan pulled up at the edge of the parking lot, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. He was tall and lean, with graying hair and worried eyes. He looked around at the chaos, the FBI agents, the captured criminals, the scattered animal tracks, and then his gaze fixed on the medical office building. "Tommy," he called out. "Tommy Chen?" Tommy's face went white. David Reeves?" The man who was supposed to be dead was very much alive, and he was walking toward them with tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he called out. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect them, but I'm here now. I'm here to make this right." Hope made a soft sound in Tommy's arms, reaching toward the approaching figure. Her father had come home, but as David Reeves walked across the parking lot, one of the captured men looked up and smiled, because this had all been part of the plan. David Reeves wasn't the victim they thought he was. He was the man who had ordered Sarah Chen's death. And now he was coming to claim his daughter.